Imagine waking up in your own body, but having no idea who you are or who the people around you are. You don't have any memories of your life, and no matter how hard you try to remember, you just can't. These are some of the effects that happen to a person diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. My grandma was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at a young age of 62, and she passed away back in 2010. I never got the chance to know my grandma before the Alzheimer's took over, which is why I've taken interest to finding out more about this disease. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease that results in memory loss and other important mental and physical functions. Today, I will be discussing 3 of the most common symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. 3 common symptoms of Alzheimer's are cognitive, which involves difficulty thinking, understanding, confusion or delusion, and forgetfulness. Next is psychological, which involves depression, paranoia, or some behavioral issues. And lastly is physical, which involves nerve damage in the brain and jumbled speech. The most known side effect of Alzheimer's is probably the cognitive symptoms. The cognitive symptoms can include anything from memory loss to forgetfulness to confusion. One of the first signs of Alzheimer's disease could be memory loss. My dad told me that him and his brothers noticed the change in my grandma's memory before she noticed it. If you think about it, memories are what makes us who we are, so when a person loses their memory, they lose bits and pieces of themselves with every gone memory. Things like memory loss and other cognitive symptoms happen in some of the first few stages of this disease. Along with the loss of memory comes the confusion of what has happened and what is happening in your present life. Cognitive symptoms are some of the more known aspects of Alzheimer's disease, which can include memory loss and confusion. Now that we have gone over the most known symptom, I'll get into a symptom that many people don't think about when they think of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease always has a major effect on a person's psychological health. Alzheimer's can cause mental illnesses such as depression and paranoia. Depression in patients with Alzheimer's has similarities and differences with people with just depression. Some of the symptoms that anyone with depression may show are loss of interest, isolation, and trouble concentrating. Symptoms of depression can be different for everyone, but there are some known differences for depression with Alzheimer's disease. According to the Alzheimer's Association, some of those differences can include symptoms being less severe, symptoms may not last as long, and symptoms may come and go. And also, the person with Alzheimer's disease may be less likely to talk about or attempt suicide. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, paranoia is a type of delusion in which a person may believe, without good reason, that others are mean, lying, unfair, or out to get me. He or she may become suspicious, fearful, or jealous of people. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services also said, in a person with Alzheimer's disease, paranoia often is linked to memory loss. It can become worse as memory loss gets worse. I think it's important to remember that people with Alzheimer's disease cannot control their memory loss and paranoia. The things they are thinking or seeing are real to them, even if it's not actually happening. Thankfully, my grandma remained pretty happy throughout her diagnosis. She didn't seem to have depression or paranoia, but it is very common for patients. The Alzheimer's Association says that experts estimate that up to 40% of people with Alzheimer's disease suffer from significant depression. Alzheimer's doesn't just affect the brain, but it can also take a major toll on a person's physical abilities. Alzheimer's has a big impact on a person's physical well-being. Some physical impairments can include nerve damage or death in the brain and jumbled speech. According to a journal written by Perry, Smith, and Mariah, axonal transport is essential for maintaining the structure and function of nerve cells. They also said that deficient axonal transport has been implicated in several neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's disease. In addition to a disturbed cytoskeleton and other abnormalities observed in Alzheimer's disease that are suggestive of axonal transport deficits, several Alzheimer's disease-related proteins are implicated in the regulation of axonal transport. The disease that causes Alzheimer's disease affects the part of your brain that controls your speech. That is why Alzheimer's patients may have jumbled speech or aphasia. This can make it harder to communicate with someone. This can also be frustrating because you want to understand what someone is saying, but you just can't. Again, the three most common symptoms of Alzheimer's is memory loss and other cognitive symptoms, psychological and physical symptoms. In conclusion, Alzheimer's is a scary and debilitating disease. According to the Alzheimer's Association, 5.8 million Americans have Alzheimer's disease today. And with Alzheimer's being such a common disease, it's important to know some of the main effects so you can seek help for yourself or for someone you know struggling with Alzheimer's. Because Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease, people can forget how to walk, brush their teeth, make their beds, and forget how to breathe. I remember the day that my grandma forgot how to walk. It happened so suddenly. One day she knew, and the next day she could barely stand on her own, let alone walk.